hard to see if we're coming on live or not. I think we're live. What do you see?
I see that we're alive. I think we're alive.
It's a little hazy. Let me ask.
Okay.
Are we going to humiliate ourselves for the 5th consecutive year with our predictions webinar?
And costumes.
Oh. It says, I am a jackass. Okay.
Oh my God.
Well.
Again?
Yes, welcome. Welcome from Madam Pearl and Soothsayin Andy. Welcome to tonight's webinar. We're going to be peering into the shrouded mysteries of what's in store for us in 2020. If you have a kid who is graduating college, I guess this year, or a junior, 2021 in particular, or 2022, there's just a lot of stuff that I think we need to be talking about. Good stuff, bad stuff. We had a very active year, to say the least, in college stuff. Felicity, do you have any Ricky Gervais jokes?
No, I actually have not heard the full monologue just yet, but I heard
It was good.
bits. It sounded great.
He's great.
He kept it real, I hear.
He always delivers.
Great.
So anyway, let us know that you can hear us and see us fine. I see a lot of people coming on, so just announce yourselves in chat. It's always cool to know what part of the country you're dialing in from, although we know that because we're psychic. That Stephen Wright joke about those psychic hotlines. I mean, you've been busy running your psychic hotlines and filing FAFSAs.
Yes.
You know that Stephen Wright joke where if they were so psychic, how come they don't call you?
That's right.
It's funny, right?
Not so psychic.
So, all right, cool. Leona, where are you from? Kathy from Seattle. Aaron from NJ. Leona from Boston. It's my stopping grounds. Still getting over the Pats. Pam from Connecticut. Gina, Rockland County. Good. Gary from Nassau. Stuart from Syracuse. Teresa from Westchester. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, I see a lot of people coming on here. We had a lot of people registered probably to see us embarrass ourselves in the costumes. I have to say that this hat friggin' hurts.
Aww.
Every year. It's like I don't think my head's getting bigger.
Your head's getting bigger, definitely.
Maybe I'm getting some forehead fat, but it feels tighter than it has been in years past.
You're looking for that? Yes, you can take it off now.
I'm not going to take it off for at least another 3 minutes.
It's going to tough it out, folks.
Yeah. So, okay. So it looks like, Marina from Rio de Janeiro. Nice. Jonah from Stony Brook. Wade from Baltimore. Nice sampling. Hello to Shama, South Orange. Okay, cool. Ready to get going?
Let's hit it.
Seems like we're coming in loud and clear, so that's always good.
All right.
I think I need to move you a little closer to me just because you're a little, yeah, good. There's more of you now. Good. All right, so you want to start with the political election stuff or the college stuff?
Well, both pretty spicy these days.
Yeah. Good. Well, why don't we launch into the college stuff because that's our expertise and, you know, what says credibility more so than this?
Costumes.
Yeah. So, do you want to go first with your predictions? How many do you actually have?
I have a handful, a peppering. Some may say.
You're not good with numbers, which is ironic for a financially informed person.
It is. Isn't it ironic? Well, I think there's a lot of gray in some of these. There's some.
You can't count? What's the gray? How many do you have? I just want to try to figure this out. We didn't spend a lot of time preparing for this.
I have the recommended 3 to 5, as we talked about.
Seems like a lot more.
Don't
Okay.
think.
Well, I have 7, but I think there might be some spin-off predictions coming.
Perhaps.
Knowing you.
Yeah.
So, all right, why don't we get right in here? Pearl is a financially informed prep expert. I am more of a college, advising guy, coaching kids and all that. Our predictions are going to be about both and other related things. And why don't you go first? You have the honor.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay. Well, as some of you may have known, there has been an increasing rather a declining enrollment in schools year after year. So what does that mean? It means that schools need to try harder to go after, oddly, fewer people to fill its spots, and then of course pay for it. So
you have a goddamn prediction.
I predict that that schools are going to offer a variety of programs that suit many budgets so that they can attract more customers, so that they can fill seats in some way. It's sort of like when somebody uses a space, let's say that they use only as a yoga studio, and maybe they decide in the morning to rent it to a daycare. For example, you whack up your space so that you can get the most return on your investment. I think colleges are starting to think that way because of the declining enrollment. They are offering more part-time things, more niche programs, so that they can get the working student involved in some kind of degree that will be useful. That I don't want to bleed over into my next prediction, but.
Well, I think that's a good prediction. Not that you asked me, but I do think that's good. It's kind of like how these elite colleges will send out invitations to kids who do pretty well on their standardized tests, and say, "Hey, what should you do? You should go to our summer school." Just the same way that our daughter Lizzie was solicited by a Harvard summer school, and someone on this broadcast got really super excited, and someone was a little cynical and mocking. You decide.
You don't have to bare
who.
your soul now.
Okay, it's so funny. You were like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Really?"
Look, I was in traffic. I shouldn't have even looked at my phone. Honestly, folks. Continue.
Yeah. So same way that
I fell prey. I know. For a moment, I did. Because I too fell prey.
It's just so funny. Well, listen, it's not by accident, because the logo is right there,
it's right there.
And it says Harvard Summer School.
Right.
But they're looking for other ways to make use of their assets, meaning their name and their empty seats over the summer.
Right.
But for anyone's wondering, that does not help you get into
right.
Harvard.
I was going to say that raises a question that I'm sure some of you may have. Do going to some of these paid for programs in the summer that these schools offer, is that
no.
a leg up?
The answer is no.
Well, okay. So,
fooled you.
some of us out there may not know.
Yeah. No, we get that question all the time.
Great.
Okay.
Don't waste your money if that's not what you want to do in and of itself.
Okay, so let me give my. We'll switch off. I'll
Sure.
give my prediction, which may seem at first a little counter to what you're saying. I am predicting that admissions rates are going to continue to drop. That's like, it's not exactly going out on a big limb, long limb here. But even though enrollment is slightly declining and continues to do so, there are actually more applications, plural, going in, thanks to the Common Application and thanks to recruitment of international students. Those are the two main drivers of that. So there may be fewer kids attending, graduating high school and attending college, but there are more applications going in, and therefore, and more kids applying to more schools per child. So that has the effect on driving admissions rates down, which is why you see Harvard and Stanford, sub 5%, and a bunch of other schools that were, the 30% maybe 15 years ago are now like 10%. So there's a lot more stress out there, and there's a lot more, denial letters and deferments happening, and that's largely due to what I just described. It's all been catalyzed by the use of the Common Application. The Common Application is accepted by something like 800 colleges. And more schools accepted each year. And if you fill out the Common Application, that allows you with one click of the button to shoot out your application to 25 schools. So that's happening also. Your turn, Madam Pearl.
Oh, thank you.
Unless you have a comment.
Well, I think that I do agree that it is going to continue to be very expensive, and the question of affordability is always going to be questioned. And I think as a result, and as consumers are being vied for.
Is this a comment, or is this your new prediction?
Oh, this is my new prediction.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't have a comment.
Okay.
I don't have a comment.
So Okay, I'm sure. I didn't mean to be rude, but I wasn't sure. We got
continuing.
we have a strict show flow here.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Prediction number 2. There
I
is
knew you'd get
going to
distracted.
be a continued questioning of the value that a student stands to get. What is their return on investment? What does that really look like in the college world? Well,
Isn't it funny when you and I talk about this stuff over and over again, and we think we have these clients who talk about this stuff, and then we come across people who actually are our clients, and they seem not to be doing this at all.
Questioning these things?
Yeah, isn't it odd to you?
Okay, so
I mean,
I think we are habitually programmed to think, we want these things and blindly go into applying and to the same, we're window sticker schools and we're programmed to like certain schools and know about them altogether in the first place. Yes. However, as the price keeps jacking up and the affordability and the question of value as we have a changing economy, changing workforce, the question of what does this big investment going to bring me? And what does that mean? With colleges, it means, are these students, when they come out in hopefully 4 years, workforce ready? And what does that mean? And how schools are being held accountable, I predict, for having students that are workforce ready when they come out with their degree. And what does that mean? It means there are going to be increased programs fostering entrepreneurship, and there are going to be connections between colleges and places that can provide these internships and maybe entry-level opportunities for their students, and of course, keeping a pulse on what skills are really necessary for this next and now economy.
I think that's a big deal because a lot of these liberal arts schools have been called onto the mat for exactly not doing that. Meaning, there's a big question about the value of a liberal arts degree, and it's kind of interesting because you were saying before that a lot of colleges are going to continue to offer interesting majors to attract people to come, but the main question is, why do they have to do that? Like some of these new funky majors, you won't see them at the more established schools because they don't have to do that to bring kids in. So that's one reaction in terms of trying to just to attract kids. But I think I remember when we were touring for our oldest son, one of the liberal arts schools went out of its way to point out, and this is like going back maybe 3 to 4 years at this point, went out of their way to point out the proximity of the Career Services Center, how the job placement and stuff, and we're seeing more and more of that. So that's a good sign, I think. I mean, I'm sort of split in my opinion about it because on one hand, I don't think that college should be a trade school,
right?
But on the other hand, if you're going to be spending $75,000 a year, you better get something out of it other than a job at Chipotle,
and something that can start paying that lump back. In many cases.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm going to adjust the brightness on your thing, unless you can do that.
Probably can try.
So you won't look as Dracula. So that's a good one too. I agree.
Yeah,
okay,
thanks.
I am going to issue my second prediction, which is another bold one. College costs are going to continue to go up. However, the reasons for them going up are less important than what I also think is going to continue increasing, which are the discounting. And that all ties into what Pearl was saying before and what we say throughout. The colleges are businesses. They compete with each other. They need to offer incentives to get kids, to get families to come. And that ties into my next prediction, which I'll do after. I'll do it after. No. You're the madam. I think this is we're entering into a new hopefully a new banner phase of negotiating. That's which I'll talk about next. I predict I'll talk about that after you talk about your prediction.
Well, it's not really a prediction. You just told us you're going to do that.
There's a fine line between telling you what I'm doing and predicting what I'm going to do. Okay. Don't take away from my art.
Okay.
Why does Pearl always emasculate me on the air? Oh, you're a jackass.
Okay. Well, this is just a prediction of the climate that is going to be that your kids are going to be introduced to when they go to college.
Snowy,
Nowadays,
rainy, humid.
depends on.
Is that what you mean by climate?
No,
Oh.
I mean it is that nowadays people are very polarized. Politics is very spicy.
What?
People are very vocal, and as a result, in more recent years, and this year is it's an election year, so we are
Heard about that.
we are approaching, in 11 months, a new election, and I don't know if you've noticed the last few elections, it gets a little crazy. And
what's your prediction, Pearl?
My prediction is there's going
Land
to
the
be
plane.
Lots of demonstrations and protests and polarized potential violence on college campuses that students and families need to be aware of and need to be vigilant about. And I just think that schools are getting much more polarized, and that's something that's a reality that families need to face if they have kids that are going to be going to college in the next few years.
Okay, that is a good prediction, and that's actually forcing me to call an audible and move from my prediction 3 to my prediction.
He did that.
6.
Wow, we call that nimble.
Yep.
Which is also relevant.
And I am going to predict. I'll get to my negotiation stuff later. So see, that is unpredictable. So you can suck it.
Okay.
Suck
it, I shall.
Please. So family.
All right.
So I predict that 93% of all professors in college will vote against Trump.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks.
How come up with that?
Well, because I read somewhere a couple years ago that 93%, I think it was 93%, of all college professors vote Democratic. And the point of, I think, what you're saying, one of the related points of what you're saying, and the point that I'm making is, it's my favorite part of the webinar. Yeah. Is that these colleges are supposed to be, in theory, they were founded to be areas for you to engage in academic, freewheeling, First Amendment, discussion about everything. Yeah, yep. And I don't think anyone
safe place.
I don't think anyone thinks that that's what happens anymore.
No.
And so the challenge is if you were actually saying this about our oldest son who was writing a paper right a few weeks ago. And he's definitely not one of these like ultra conservative, young Republican white supremacist kids. But he said that he had to
purposely spin it. Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Please.
Please.
Oh.
Please.
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 Go
ahead. Always. What did Jack say?
Why are you always interrupting me, Mom?
Then what did he say?
He said that he felt that he purposely, and at least he understands and has an awareness, thankfully, that maybe to appeal to the teacher, finally,
whole other issue,
right? And he's thinking about that. So to appeal to the teacher, he needed to make, irrespective of what his opinions and feelings were, that was irrelevant. He actually needed to sort of show some advocacy in a liberal way in his work for college.
So in other words, he had to shelve his personal beliefs and suck up on paper to make sure that he was graded well, because he's afraid of if he expresses true beliefs, which I think in general are pretty balanced. I mean, he's all over the place.
He's really mixed,
but he understood, I guess, using his emotional intelligence skills, which are rare sightings, like an extinct dinosaur around here, to be able to angle his and suck up, so that he would hopefully get a better grade.
Finally.
But anyway, more along the lines of what you were saying about protests and all that. So if you have a child who is not particularly, aggressive in terms of left, liberal types of beliefs, and he or she's going to a college during an election year, I remember, who was it? It was Dina, a client of ours in Garden City, whose daughter is an athlete at an Ivy League school. Which I won't name, but it's in Cambridge, Massachusetts. and it's the oldest college in the country. And she got there during the initial election, 2016, and I didn't get the impression that she was like a raving conservative or anything like that, but she was taken aback by just how much the intensity, how much intensity there was, and that was hard for her. I don't think she would have
to repress altogether.
Yeah,
and when you're learning, and whatever your opinion is, if you feel inhibited to speak your mind freely because you're going to be harassed in some way, or worse, the subject of violence or anything, a target in some way. The fact that you have to stop and think about it instead of learning, and part of learning is being able to ask questions and talk about things. And if you can't do that, or you're inhibited to do so, it could potentially interfere with your learning.
Yeah, just the same way when I start to say stuff, people jump down my throat in the house, and I feel like there's a chilling effect on me. That can happen in college too. But it's not supposed to happen in college. That only happens when you're married. What's your next prediction?
That's hilarious.
I wasn't sure you were paying attention.
Huh.
Next.
After you, my list is there.
Well, I just okay, fine. All right, so let me get back to the discounting.
You're on a roll.
let me get back to the circling back to what I was going to say about discounting. So I think this is going to be a banner year, and the next few years at least are going to be great for discounting, meaning negotiating discounts. That's how I should have said it. So what I'm referring to is that and this was not covered really at all by normal media outlets, right wing or left wing, which is just the geeky stuff that I read about the college business. And so there's a trade group of colleges. Every college that you probably heard of is in it, and they were being investigated by the Department of Justice for, wait for it, collusion, specifically having to do with anti-competitive practices. For example, colleges have this, it's codified. It's like a written gentleman's agreement that if anyone is applying early decision, if they're offering early decision, they can't include extra spiffs or incentives like we'll give you free dorm or we'll give you a special scholarship if you apply early decision. Colleges voluntarily have not been doing that. Another one was after May 1st, when kids come in and send in the housing deposits, colleges voluntarily agreed to stop their marketing efforts to try to entice kids after they had committed. Again, written gentleman's agreement. Those things are now off the table.
Gloves came off.
They in order to I guess prevent further investigation or at least soften the Department of Justice investigation, the College Trade Group voluntarily pulled away those restrictions and a couple of other things. So what I'm getting at is that's a good thing for we, the consumer, who have kids going to college, because now there'll be more competition. So I don't know if that's going to happen now in January through the rest of 2020. I think it will, but I'm hoping that the increased competition is going to make it better for bargaining. Okay. That's my hope. Do you have anything else, or should I bring in my next guest?
Let's go with your next guest, since it looks like you're prop ready.
Okay. I predict I'm going to jail. She's definitely going to jail.
Yeah. Question is how long? And who else is she bringing down with her?
Yeah, that was just a bonus prediction.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think everybody else could have helped us with that one.
Well, I do think that there will be some more people caught up in it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm actually hopeful.
The question is, will the colleges maintain their cleanliness in all of this? What say you, Swami?
Yes, it's starting to lose circulation. This thing is killing me. I don't. Yeah, it's definitely not going away. I think there's going to be more stories coming out. Personally, I think I told you this, a few months ago. I'm a little nervous about us because I was brought in to be interviewed, and not by the Justice Department, and hopefully no one's wearing a wire here. The guy who did a famous documentary is doing another one about the college stuff, and you probably don't know the guy's name, but you've seen stuff that he's done. So he interviewed me for like a couple hours, and I thought it went great. And then I came back and told you I was in the city, and you're like, "What's it gonna rip apart our business? Is it like a hit job?" And I was like, "Oh crap." So I don't know.
Then what are we gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know when that's coming out, but of course I'll announce it, even if it's maybe I won't announce it.
So we may need to be reaching out to you all for a job, perhaps.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to hire Rich Singer to work for us. I think he's looking for.
Is he looking for some action?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I do think there's going to be more. There's definitely there's a longer tail, I think, than we've seen.
And then really the next question is, okay, so this was pretty egregious. What else is kind of repugnant in this same vein in terms of college admissions? And will there be a greater scrutiny on all kinds of, I don't know, I'll put it under the umbrella of shenanigans, but sometimes, the
Malarkey?
outside, malarkey, they say.
Joe Biden.
Sometimes
Creepy-
the outside
creepy
testing and, okay, if I pay, I'll pay you X amount of dollars.
Malarkey. Who am I? Malarkey.
Oh, no.
Joe Biden.
Creepy. Oh, right.
He was
I'm like, creepy.
the Malarkey tour.
All right.
Or the no Malarkey tour. Don't you remember you pointed out to me? You're like, who even uses that word
The word
anymore?
malarkey. I know. I mean, honestly, you're saying the word malarkey, and I'm thinking Richie Cunningham.
Right.
Happy days.
Right.
Okay.
But that's probably he's probably appealing to people who were young back then, during the Happy Days era.
Right.
So speaking of scrutiny, my prediction here, prediction number 5. Even though I skipped 4, but we did the bonus.
Okay. No one's counting really. They just want to hear the info.
Well, it's nice for you to speak for everyone. By the way, if you have any predictions, lob them in chat. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. I think I've already witnessed this, so I have a leg up on this prediction that there will be more scrutiny of college applicants and of college financial aid applicants. So I actually had a conversation today, which I think is appropriate. The cape is okay. The hat, I feel it like.
Maybe we can loosen it up next year.
How do you loosen it up? I don't want to invest in a new. What do you call this thing?
It is a turban.
This is a turban?
Yeah.
I thought you were wearing a turban.
I think we're both wearing turbans. Yours is more adorned than mine.
Well, I'm sure.
Well, I feel like your puffiness is like something to do with thinking. Isn't that what like Johnny Carson wore?
Physical
It has. I don't
puffiness,
know.
my body shape.
I think you are the soothsayer with that.
Karnak?
I don't think I'm anything except for just somebody who is.
Am I more of Karnak or Zoltan?
Zoltan
From
Big.
Yes.
You're welcome.
And the Geico commercial.
Right.
So more scrutiny for kids on their applications.
Yep.
I had 2 kids last year, students I worked with, who were called into their offices, at their administrative offices at their respective high schools, to discuss quote unquote discrepancies, even though they'd already been admitted to their top choice schools. One was an Ivy, one was an Ivy-like college. And ultimately nothing came of it, but it was a hassle for several weeks and maybe even longer. I think this year, somehow, some way, whether it's from the guidance counselors or whether it's from admissions officers, there's going to be a more skeptical eye cast at, 15 people from the same high school who founded the robotics team, things like that. So I'm hoping, and I don't know how they're going to do it, but I'm hoping that guidance counselors are going to be encouraged to kind of certify or at least review the activities that kids put down. When you fill out a college application, you're putting down not only the actual activity in the description, which needs to be accurate. It can be, we always try to punch it up so it's more impressive sounding, but there's a difference between polish and fiction. So that's one thing. But then there's also the number of hours per week and the number of weeks per year that also gets disclosed in the activity section. So I am
So sorry.
I am hoping. It's not like we use the camera too much. I was predicting. Before we got on the air, and she put her cup of tea down there to get to the tea leaves, obviously.
Exactly.
And your phone in the corner.
Yeah.
I said I have a prediction about those because, but I didn't want to make it because Pearl has a tendency to kind of shift around and move her hands a lot.
Effusive hands.
And last time we were out a couple weeks ago with our friend Jimmy and Di, who I don't think are on here tonight, you managed to dump 2 glasses of
Not
wine.
one, but
yeah, right.
2.
One at the bar, one at the table, talking about the same thing. The cheese thing.
Yeah, we went somewhere that had like a tire wheel size of Parmesan cheese.
Do you know the cookies in here?
Which I do.
This is about to be a disaster. There we go.
In which
Cookie, my son's dog, puppy, is now in here creating havoc under here. Jack, can you get Cookie out of here? Anyway, so
just wheel of Parmesan.
Yeah, she's it's terrible.
Describing the wheel of Parmesan cheese using my hands to describe how they make their pasta that way. Their fettuccine alfredo, which is incredible, by the way. Anyway, and that's probably what I was saying.
What's the restaurant?
Knocked
what was
over.
it called? New York?
This one.
It was in
Mayola, something Mayotte.
It was in. She jumping on you?
Yeah.
So funny. She on the air. Oh, it's so funny. Such a camera hug. It was in Long Island City. So anyway, be prepared to. I don't. Up until last year, and I don't know if it's going to change this year, but guidance counselors actually never saw applications unless you voluntarily share with them. They would upload their information your information that they were required to into Naviance for the most part, and Naviance would then be connected to the common application. Okay. Bye. So funny. All right. She's such a puppy. All right, go away. Jack.
Go ahead.
So respond. I actually said to him specifically, Jack, we're doing a webinar in 20 minutes. So yeah, okay.
Our college-age son.
Yeah, the guy who wrote the paper.
One who's super, responsive now.
Yeah.
We're saying that. Never mind.
right.
2 steps forward, 3 steps back, something like that. Hi.
Yeah.
We're doing a live webinar. Cookie's here with us. She's made a camera appearance.
She's been knocking the camera around.
Call.
Yeah.
Let's go. Pretty obedient.
Yeah, very obedient. She's so well trained. She's been giving us gifts on the floor. Anyway, so now I think I'm hopeful that there's going to be a little bit more oversight, and I predict there will be more oversight, if not at the guidance counselor level, but probably at the college admissions officer level. I've been hearing about all these meetings and oversight and brainstorming things that are happening at college admissions committees, in the off season, which to me just sounds like a bunch of meetings that have meetings, but who knows, the administrative BS, I don't know. Okay, so that's one set. And then in terms of the financial aid scrutiny, I think there's going to be more. So let me spin you a tale a little bit. I mean, you know the client because you prepare all the financial aid forms. Mm-hmm. But their daughter got an early decision to an elite, not Ivy, but almost Ivy caliber, Northeast liberal arts school, which again I'm not going to name, but it's in Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, and Doug Flutie went there. So they applied early decision, and the kid got a really crappy award. And they're like, okay, we did the net price calculator before we applied, and it came back with a much higher prediction on what we should receive. And they went back and forth with financial aid a little bit, and it turns out they actually were told by the financial aid office, I don't think I told you this, that because he's self-employed, he's got a business with a lot of losses, they said, well, you're self-employed, we think you could be hiding money. Literally said that to him.
Wow.
And the reality is he was a Wall Street guy. He ended up leaving, financial stuff, and he bought a franchise in recent history, and it's just not been going so well. And he plunked in a lot of his own money, several $100,000 to initially to buy the franchise, and then some more to keep it afloat. And his wages are pretty low. So I feel, and I've seen this before, probably a couple times a year. I feel like what the financial aid office is trying to get him and us to do is to prove a negative, to prove the absence of income, which is really a bizarre thing to do. How do you prove there's no there?
Sounds very like proving yourself innocent when you've been.
Yeah, the burden's on him. So I was on the phone with his accountant today, and and try to get him to write a letter saying, listen, I've been his accountant for a couple of years. This is what happened. He's taking deductions that are normal and customary. He's not hiding any money. He's living off his savings, that type of thing. So I'm cautiously optimistic that they're going to see, the error of their ways. But the people in the financial aid office in general, they're not accountants, they're not CPAs, they're not investment bankers, they're not business people. They don't really know how to read a profit and loss statement. If they were looking at his corporate return, do they get the corporate return also when you submit them to Boston College?
Depends on the
Boston College.
yeah, they want
the
business.
school just
Yes, they
some
want,
schools don't, right?
Right. Oh, many schools don't. BC wants the
Okay. So if
business
they
returns.
got them and they knew how to read them, it would be obvious. So
Right.
So they got them, but they don't know how to read them.
Right.
Okay. So so it's incumbent upon you if you're in this situation or you're working with us on us to help you, fight this battle.
Mhm.
So I think there's going to be more of that type of stuff, more scrutiny. I think there's going to be more of a strictness and a close read of financial aid applications where the income appears to be too low, perhaps, or sometimes scrutiny in terms of we see that you generated a bunch of interest or dividend income, but we don't see the assets that corresponded to that. So where'd that come from? That type of thing. So I think there's going to be more of that. What do you think, Pearl?
I think you're right. No, I think you're right. We're actually seeing the trend of schools having, even niching into having their own special financial aid forms that they're making themselves. Like Fordham this year has now, their business value form and their parent business asset form, things that didn't exist before that are specific to that school. Other schools as well developing. Maybe they're trying to really not only get a sense of your finances, but get a sense of how interested are you that you're going to go through all these hoops to express your interest in our school, because I've noticed a continued kind of niching into specialties and other requirements and just away from it just being one way. A little, yeah.
For financial aid applications.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, I see some good questions coming in here. Diana and Leslie, who's a big Pearl fan. She especially likes when Pearl is with us. So do I. Behind the scenes, it is so hard to get her to do these things. And I always say, Pearl, it's so much better when you are here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very sweet. I'm glad I'm
And then
here.
what do you say?
It depends what hour of the day it is.
Okay. It's usually
thrilled
more
to be
like,
here.
I don't want to wear a bra.
Come on,
Next.
ladies. Show me some love
Okay.
and support.
All right, fine. So
intended.
we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon because Pearl's tired. It's almost bedtime. So lob in your questions, and I have one more, I guess, prediction I want to talk about, and there's one that was just brought up by Diana here. Okay, so I have a prediction about the growth or the changes of test optional status.
Mm-mm.
So there are, I think, way more than 1,000 schools now that are test optional. The reason that they usually give is to make college more accessible for low-income families who can't afford to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for test prep and take the SAT or the ACT like 17 times each.
Yeah.
Right. In reality, what has happened is that college has not necessarily become more accessible to people who have lower scores, maybe possibly slightly, but statistically not significant. However, the sort of unintended Freakonomics effect has been that a lot of kids who are from upper middle class, mass affluent families who kind of sucked at the SAT or the ACTs, which I'm going to explain my theory on that, are able to get into and desirable for these kind of preppy, snooty, small New England, private colleges.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to name names for that because that's definitely offensive. I'm not trying to be offensive. I don't have to try. But so this unintended effect has been to allow kids with crappy SAT and ACT scores to get in where they normally wouldn't be able to get in. I was talking to him a couple weeks ago. He was in the office. We had a client last year who was a recruited athlete to a New England liberal arts college, and he was getting a certain amount of money for merit, not athletic money. And the coach said to him, "Hey, listen, if you apply without submitting your scores, I can get you an extra $7,000 a year." So these schools will play games in order to bend over backwards to attract math affluent, six-figure earning families. So I don't think the standardized tests are going away. I know that in California right now, in the California system, there is sort of a, I don't know if it's a debate or some kind of referendum or something to abandon, to make all the UCs test optional. There's also a movement to replace the SAT or the ACT with something that's not necessarily as biased, apparently toward high-income families, although I don't know what would be, but apparently there are other things out there. One of the reasons that I think they're never going away is really because it's very hard for admissions officers to figure out who's qualified to do the work at a certain school because grade inflation is rampant. We've talked about that many times. It's very unusual for teacher recommendations to be anything other than glowing and effusive. So the standardized tests are definitely not perfect, but they're the last, I think, one of the last bastions of impartiality. Sometimes parents come to us and are like, I can't understand why her scores are so low. I mean, she gets 96s in college, in high school, or 93s, but she can't crack 25 in the ACT. I'm always thinking to myself, that's because of the grade inflation. She has artily, high, because there's no C's anymore.
And test anxiety is another suspect.
And anxiety in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety out there. So
there is.
Yeah. So,
really
yeah, no comment on that. But anyway, so I think there'll be more changes. The recent change to the ACT in terms of being able to take one section at a time after you take in the whole thing. Number one, I think that's done to get more people to take the ACT.
Yeah.
Number two, I think it's a way to combat anxiety, maybe a little bit. Yeah. But number three, it's sort of a reverting to the lowest common denominator. It's saying, hey, take your test any way you want.
Right.
It's up to you.
Just like your job one day, hey, come 9:30, 10, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Because that's how the world is, right?
Well, in some offices it is. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Our friend
as long as you
Pam
stay,
was just telling me. Yeah.
You come at 10, you stay till 6. That's okay.
Well,
flexible is the way it is these days.
Flexible and free coffees and foosball and other amenities. Yeah, that's very big too. So okay, so that's my prediction on the. I don't think the SAT or ACT are going away anytime soon. There's too much money involved with them for the nonprofit college board and the nonprofit ACT board or ACT company, whatever they're called. So that I don't think they're going away, but I think they're going to continue to change to serve the needs of what they perceive to be the needs of the students, i.e. their customers and the colleges. Okay. All right. I have. Let me do this. I'm going to, if anyone wants to talk to us one-on-one, costumes not included, you can do so by booking. This is for new people. If you're already a client of ours or we've already spoken, there's no freebie. But for anyone who is, you're taking yours off?
It's all right.
Oh, good.
It's hurting my head too a little.
Really?
Oh,
you never say that?
No.
Oh.
This was this time. I have a bit of a headache.
All right. We put this at the dry cleaners?
Of course.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, if you haven't ever spoken to us about potentially our services, working together, that type of thing, the way to do that is to click on that blue sign me up button, and you're not committing to doing anything. You are just booking a time to talk. But first, you fill out a little application, give us a little background, and then we'll meet on the phone. I'll call you, or someone will call you, and the whole deal is you can ask whatever questions you want. I or my team will definitely have some questions for you, and if we think you're a good fit for one of our programs, we'll go through it. You can make a decision whether you want to be part of it or not. But if we can't help, that happens a lot. We're the first to say, don't waste your money too. So that's the big offer right there. All right, so let me go into some of these questions. We got some great questions. Cool. Mike, great stuff. Let us know when and where we can watch the replay. Yeah, we're going to have that up for a couple of days, I think. Diane, I want to understand why it isn't reasonable for transparency on admissions to be given. Well, it is it's a black box. And there's litigation happening right now with the Harvard Asian American stuff and whatever. But I think it's all going to be upheld. Colleges are allowed to choose whom to admit and whom they don't want to.
Do so.
Yeah, it's just I think it's just the way it is.
Sacred.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. Yeah. I don't have a better answer than that. And Leslie said, yeah, rightfully, there's no perfect formula, right? And will colleges look for changes? Yeah, I think so. Change a little bit. Any thoughts on Shama? Any thoughts on Squire or Score? I never pronounce it right. Versus Naviance. My understanding is I don't use either one, but I understand why people are switching away from Naviance. We have something privately available that we use. I understand one of the big problems that Naviance has in helping you predict whether you're getting in or not is it looks only at kids from your high school. So if you go to a small high school or you're applying to colleges that no one from your high school has really applied to, then it's not going to be that helpful. And I believe it's Score, Scoir. How would you pronounce that? Squire? Swar? Score?
Score sounds good.
Yeah.
Just a different spelling.
Yeah.
Kind of like when a kid gets like a
I think it's like
spelling.
I think it's like choir, but Skyer.
Yeah, sounds that way.
Not Score, Skyer.
Okay, Skyer.
Squar, like or film noir.
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Squar.
Squar.
Yeah, but there's no E.
We'll have to get back to everyone on that one.
Yeah.
Very
Sure.
important.
I would want to know too if I were on this
A
webinar.
listener? Yeah.
So I think it's better, but I'm not that much of an expert on that one. Let's see. Yeah, Leslie, to get merit money, many schools one score is right, but there are exceptions, like I said before about the athlete kid. Jennifer, do schools typically so if you have questions, now's the time to lob them in because we're going to wrap up. Do schools typically super score the ACT? I would say it's typical, but many schools do. Leslie, doesn't the school report card help decipher if grades are accurate? So what Leslie's referring to is that each college, each high school has like a profile, which they call a report card. It helps, but there's rampant grade inflation everywhere, so it only helps so much. Diana, I predict, good prediction. The University of California will be test optional in year 1, and it'll be implemented in 3 years or so, and this will create some strange ramifications. Yeah, I feel like the UCs have become more of a meritocracy than they used to be, but what that's done is crowded out underprivileged or underrepresented minorities, some, not the immigrant, Korean, Asian, that community, right? So that's always in the back of my head. I'm thinking like, well, some, poor immigrant groups do well on the standardized test. Why don't the other ones do? So I'm not going to get into that. That's definitely out of my sweet spot. I'm an amateur on that stuff. But Jewish families were once immigrants who studied really hard, and the Koreans are the new Jews, or there's all these stories about that. So California is so loopy, anything could happen.
Oops.
Okay. I hate the fake boards. What do you mean, oops? Virginia, which schools are hot and which are not? Well, okay, so I think we kind of talked about that indirectly, but we should talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
So
I'm noticing certain trends.
Good. So you fill out financial aid forms and you see where everyone's applying.
Yeah.
So talk about hot schools, and then if you can, talk about some schools that have dropped off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll talk about the generous ones versus the non-generous ones.
Okay. So I've definitely seen an uptick in some more southern schools. I've noticed like Alabama is pretty hot. Still,
because they're not giving as much money as they used to.
University of Georgia's on a lot of kids' lists.
Bulldogs.
Yeah, still University of South Carolina and Bentley. Some of the business entrepreneur schools are hot. People are thinking towards the value and the responding to the trends, the business trends, and what the landscape looks like and what it's going to look like when their kids get out, and what skills they're going to need to have. I've noticed.
What about some of the usual suspects? I think a lot of them are still hot.
Yes, same. The usual suspects that are hot, have been hot, are and continue to be hot. Penn State, University of Miami, Syracuse,
Tulane.
Michigan, Tulane,
Right.
and more rigorous and more difficult to get into. Like Tulane is much more choosy. They slam, they're like banging on the door of the Ivies in terms of its applicant pool.
They're one of those schools like Northeastern.
Yep.
That went from having like a 30-something% acceptance rate 10-ish years ago to like 17 or 14 or something.
Yes, they're edging up.
Yeah,
it's true.
Syracuse,
and of course, Northeastern
Syracuse
continues to be for many reasons. One, because it's been on this upward trend for many years now and has established it so. But of course, because it has this special and arguably pioneer to responding to the needs of the workplace. It has this co-op program that is very special to it. And
which many other schools have also. They're just not as well known.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that continues to be very hot too.
What about, I don't know if I'm just getting more clients like this in our own little weird part of the universe, but what about schools out of the country?
Definitely. Yes, I definitely noticed is an uptick on my list of schools. It's always, the United States. And then there's schools that are in England and a lot in Canada and some in Ireland and Madrid. Yeah.
Now, I'm always kind of, when I hear about someone who's applying to these schools,
of course, McGill.
I hear about it, I think it's interesting. The price is usually better and whatever. But how many kids actually end up going to those schools? I think it's very little. Yeah.
Few.
It's become this like romanticized idea. Oh yeah, I want to go to school.
I think it's part of the process of schools and the application process, frankly, of they are names on paper, stickers you see occasionally on a rearview window or on a sweatshirt, and that's the beginning of it. And then it gets on your list and it gets in your forms and your applications. And then when you start to get accepted and the reality of how near and far is it from my home and what are they offering when I'm there and the mechanics of it and the flying, am I going to be flying there, and the feasibility of it. Yeah. As opposed to, honestly, what people back into is, I can go to a program here in the United States and, of course, do a semester or a year abroad. And that's typically what I've seen ends up happening in practice, that they don't end up matriculating to these schools that are abroad. But sometimes those same kids may, because they're exploring a lot of different things altogether, they may be the very kids that also decide to take a gap year altogether.
That's rare.
Yeah.
I mean, at least in our
but I think it's just it's just somebody being a little more open-minded, I guess, about where.
I'm always wondering, like, okay, so if you graduate from school somewhere else in a different country, then what? Like, what does that get you?
Well, you got to look at the end goal and reverse engineer from there. If you are,
that's a great idea.
I know, isn't it? If you're looking, it depends. If you are going there and then hope to do something very locally in New York or locally in wherever, or in a specific industry, and you're putting yourself kind of very remote to that, it's something to consider. On the other hand, if it's directly in pursuit of what you're looking to study and that leads you to the occupation of your pursuit and dreams, then that's another thing.
All right, let's go through a couple more questions here, and then we'll wrap her up. Okay, what is considered a good SAT score today? That's all relative. It depends on the schools you're applying to. I would say an average SAT is slightly below 1,000, like a little bit below. And if you're applying to an IB, 1,700, it's really good. The extra credit, the hidden secret extra credit. It's normally 1,600.
No,
it's a perfect score. No, I mean it really depends. It's situational. That's the best answer I can give. Where is merit money plentiful? From Pam. So that is also a it depends question. It's not plentiful at the state schools for the most part, but they do give some. It has to do with what your standing is compared to the rest of the class. So the schools that are most likely to give money are private colleges that have a harder time attracting, where you're very desirable, and they're going to roll out the red carpet because they have a harder time attracting kids with your caliber of SAT and ACT scores and GPA, meaning specifically if you can figure out from last year's class what the average grades and average scores were, and you know how many kids they admitted, and you can say, okay, well, based on that, I'm in the top 10%, you're probably going to get a lot of money. But the schools that are less likely to give money are the ones that don't have it, or the ones that you have to beg, borrow, and steal, and scratch and claw your way to get into. I've also noticed anecdotally some schools that used to be a little bit more generous, not as generous anymore. I've noticed, I think Marist used to be a lot more generous.
Definitely, but it's also gotten hotter.
Yep.
Again, sorry if I didn't mention that one. Always.
I also, at a point, I
list.
said this before, Alabama used to give a lot more money, but then I think they got what they were looking for, and now they are a lot less generous. They're more
Maybe
stingy.
now that they have more applicants, they can afford to be a little more choosy.
Yeah. They also have a much greater proportion of out-of-state compared to in-state.
Right.
As opposed to like University of North Carolina, which takes 17% from out-of-state and 83% from in-state. What else? I think Elon also used to be a lot more generous and no longer is as generous.
They're all knowing their worth as they've classed themselves up.
Yeah, their value to the marketplace that they've created. I think schools like High Point are continuing to be very generous. They're a lot easier to get into, but I look at High Point as an A school for B students. I actually think it's a great school. So if you're not gunning for the super elite schools, but you have a business-minded kid, I think that's a good pick also. Just to round out some of the North Carolina schools there. Marina, love you guys. Thank you. Love you too. I guess. It feels awkward. When are you going to have a webinar for international students? I guess we could think about that. What languages would you want to speak in?
Well, Spanish was always my best subject.
Okay, and I'm great at Sanskrit, so we'll come up with something. No, I don't know if I guess it is different. I mean, we do have a handful of international students every time. There's more similarities than differences, meaning I'd say it's about 90-ish% the same. But when you're talking about like financial aid and stuff, you were just doing some forms for a client of ours in Estonia, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a lot of schools that don't give money for international students, but there are plenty of schools that do.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So.
And they go deep.
Yeah. So that's
every last
box
of cereal you buy. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Lisa, can you name a few schools that have a similar co-op program to Northeastern? Yeah, I could, but I want Drexel. That's the one that pops up. Meg, is Alabama respected for computer engineering? Yeah. So in terms of these specific questions, this is not the time to do that. But just general questions, are good. But if you do want to talk to us one-on-one and you're potentially interested in working with us, what I'll say is I am getting ready to close out the 2021 kids that I work on. I capped the number of kids that I specifically help with college advisory services at 24 per year, and I think I'm at 20. Someone put a deposit down. They didn't actually come up with the whole thing. So, but we also have a couple of junior associates who work with us. And in terms of if you're interested in getting help with the paying aspect of it, Pearl had a crazy year. You were swamped. And I say half kiddingly, maybe we shouldn't even offer that service anymore because it was almost not worth it. But if you are interested in any of this stuff, get to us sooner rather than later before we kind of pull the plug on taking on new clients. We have hired a few people to help that we will be supervising, but not working with us one-on-one. And like I said, if you want to talk to us, you fill out a quick application just by clicking on that blue button, and then they'll walk you through the information that we would need to make the call more productive, and then we can book a time on my calendar, and we'll talk. And then that's it. There's no pressure or anything. All right, last question. Well, it's a comment from Marina. She said she's okay if we do it in English. Good for international students. What I tell my kids, this is Leslie, acceptance to your reach schools, the Ivy and Ivy League schools, admittance is considered a gift. There will be little to no money. You have to not develop an attitude. Schools that warn you, they have students, they have standards. Oh, sorry, that have standards that are below who you are generous. Then you play the offers against each other. Works for my oldest, she goes gratis. Yeah, that's cool. And it doesn't really. There's no real correlation between where you go to school and how successful you are.
That's for sure.
Iffy at best. So that's really coming full circle to what you said in the beginning.
The variable is the kid.
Yeah, what you put into it. Yeah.
User error or not.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap. That was good. That was about an hour.
Yeah.
Almost on the dot, which I predicted also.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Thanks for taking time out of whatever else you were doing. Sure, you had other stuff to do than watch a couple of people in goofy costumes. But we love doing this. This is to me, this is like the best thing. This is there's no place I'd rather be than doing this. Speaking for you.
Same.
Good.
I love it.
Yeah, we love this. So I'm going to be forcing Pearl to do more of this. Since I caught you on camera saying that you like doing it.
I do.
Okay, good. And everyone, have a great night. Thanks for joining us.
Have a great year, everybody.
And we'll talk to you soon. She's getting a little smart.
Mm.
Hungry.
It's